The future of work will be one where we will work side to side with AI agents that will be our colleagues, be our personal assistants, and will make us more productive. First of all, if we know how to use them. And secondly, will also make autonomous decisions. So antifragility is this term made popular by the economist Nassim Taleb, thanks to his book about leaders and organizations being anti-fragile whenever they strengthen themselves through chaos and very hard situations. But I actually made some adjustments to this term in my book, and I actually came up with the term antifragility to define an ability of leaders to actually learn through their mistakes and to improve their business and organizations through that. So it's very much correlated to the, again, ability to deal with mistakes. My thesis is that in the world of technology and AI, actually, we should outsource to AI, again, in technology, everything that it does better, namely efficiency and productivity and, repetition of very familiar tasks. And that's where AI will minimize dramatically the amount of mistakes we make in organizations. Why? Because, again, it is more efficient and productive than us. We humans make mistakes even whenever we do tasks that we're very familiar with. AI doesn't, or at least, makes a very minimal amount of mistakes. Now, whenever we basically outsource to AI all of that, we humans, leaders and employees and workers, should actually take advantage of that and experiment more. Experiment more in the unfamiliar domain of business where innovation stems from. And so the more we experiment, as much as scientists, the more we make mistakes. And so what becomes the differentiator is our ability to learn through those mistakes. And this is what I define antifragility in my book. It is the ability, again, to extract the most value through mistakes. And so, it's one step beyond resilience, right? Very much often we hear about talking about, the necessity of companies being resilient, but I challenge this vision. Resilience comes from the word, the Latin word, resilire, and as a good Italian, I know it well, means to get back to normal state. After a mistake, after a failure, we don't want to get back on track. We want to actually improve and become even better. And so as much as, resilience is one step after fragility, antifragility is two steps after, because it's even more than being resilient. It is about being able to extract the most value through mistakes and to evolve and improve as leaders and organizations. So I used to work at Tinder. I was the head of Tinder, the dating app, for 5 years in Latin America. I launched the app and I made Brazil the second biggest market in the world. And the invisible marketing is a marketing framework that I actually developed and applied at Tinder at that age. Namely, it was around 2014. That's when we launched in Latin America. And it was a model that with this provocative term, invisible marketing, it sounds counterintuitive because marketing wants your brand and your product to actually appear and be visible. But the truth is that I felt the traditional marketing strategies were too pushy and too disconnected with what users and customers wanted today. Namely, something very organic, something very personalized, something that didn't feel like a transactional push. And so I developed this framework that is based on three big pillars, and it actually became one of my best-selling keynotes. It is, first of all, invisible marketing, a new marketing framework that is based first on selling experiences and not products and services, right? And so I pivot away from this very transactional view of marketing that is, we should sell and push a product and create the need for that through let's craft an experience and make a sale out of it. But eventually, through an experience, you just retain and make your customers more loyal to your brand. They, you produce awareness. They can experiment your product and service. And so the experience is like an opening door. It's not pushy. It's immersive. And so makes the customer feel much better about your product and service. The second pillar of invisible marketing is hyper personalization, right? So we live in a world of data, and so we need to use that data in order to personalize the experience for our customer. Otherwise, again, it will feel too visible, too pushy. And so an invisible marketing is a marketing that is so personalized that basically people don't even feel this is marketing, but this is just a way to solve their own problems. And so again, the more we implement digital journeys in our relationship with our customer, the more data we collect. And so it's like a snowball effect. The more data, the more we can personalize. And the third point is by, again, pivoting away from transactional relationships towards conversational experiences, right? And so conversation is very important because, again, traditional marketing would always be one way, right? Would be the company communicating their message to the customer and trying to convince him or her that it was worth the purchase. Now, it's almost the opposite. Brands should listen to their customers. And so that's why we need conversations. Conversations are two ways. And so this is much more based on, communities rather than just on basically individual transactions. And so I think these 3 points are very important. Again, focusing on experiences, in hyper personalization, and basically on conversations. And so this marketing, this invisible marketing, is much smoother, almost invisible again, doesn't feel like marketing. And eventually the result is that it maximizes retention and loyalty of your customers, which is eventually the most important metric whenever you look at your business in the long term. So I think history teaches us a lot about the future of work, although this time in history has some very specific characteristics that we've never encountered in the past. But whenever we look at the past, we've always had tech waves and very transformative technologies that have radically changed how work was done, professional skill set, and basically the job market, right? Since, of course, a first pattern that was, more than 10,000 years ago, whenever, even before, before settlers and agriculture would be discovered and dominated, we had hunters and gatherers that basically would thrive in tribes and would have the highest chance of survival if they had very strong physical attributes, right? And then new technologies came in. Technologies, including the use of horsepower to actually cultivate fields, or even more rudimental technologies, again, for agriculture or for cattle. Basically, with these technologies, what happened? The paradigm shifted, and therefore, who would thrive and have the highest chance of survival became who had the best cognitive skills, right? Because technology democratized access to physical skills. And so this paradigm lasted for many years. New technologies came in, steam, and then, mass production, electricity, and so on. And we've always, at first, seen these transformative technologies as a threat to our role as human beings. But we've also learned that actually these new technologies create new jobs. And so that's the importance of reskilling and upskilling our people. And so when we look at this moment in time, we are undergoing also a very transformative moment, maybe the most transformative we've ever gone through. But we have one specific characteristic. In the past, the cycles were much longer. You had years and decades to reinvent yourself and learn new skills. Now, we have much less time available. And so the thing here is that we have to use technology for many of our tasks because we need time back to upskill and reskill. So again, getting back to one of my previous answers, we have to outsource to AI our most familiar tasks, the ones that have the highest degree of repetition, where we have the most data, most familiarity, and gain back time to actually focus on developing new skills. Because the future of work will be one where we will work side to side with AI agents that will be our colleagues, be our personal assistants, and will make us more productive. First of all, if we know how to use them. And secondly, will also make autonomous decisions. And so again, it's not only a personal assistant that will activate whenever we ask them to, because we prompt them. Actually, they will make decisions by themselves. That's, the big wave of AI agents in 2025 is showing that. And so, long story short, the future of work is one where we'll have AI colleagues that will make autonomous decisions and will make autonomous decisions specifically related to hard skills. And so the future of work, when it comes to the humans, will be one where we will have more time, if we are able to outsource to AI many of our tasks, in order to develop new skills, mainly in the soft skills domain, that will make us compatible and complementary to AI, and again, not substitutable by it. Because as much as, when textile technologies were introduced, there was the Luddites movement in the second half of the 19th century in the UK, exactly. And many people wanted to destroy these machines because they felt like they'd substitute their manpower. Well, these were exactly the people who have been substituted. Why? Because they would not give up their old way of thinking that their skill was to just wave fabric, while they didn't understand that their new skill had to be how to best use this technology, maybe how to set up a store, how to sell more of these new fabrics. And that's exactly the analogy that we should use today. Being better at using the technology that will be our colleague in the workplace, an autonomous one, and a very, very, very smart one. So basically, I have the opportunity to provide around 100 keynote speeches per year to companies of all sizes and of all sectors across the globe. And what I would say that the customers take, away from them is, I would say that is behavioral change. And I'll explain this better. I take a keynote speech and I consider it very different from a class or a training or a workshop, or where I'd want to teach something and transfer knowledge. Of course, I'm transferring knowledge also through my public speeches, but I'm actually more focused in the behavioral change that takes place after it, right? And that's the feeling that I have with most of the customers. In any briefing, they're not asking, for example, to just update the audience with the latest tech trends, or just to provide a theoretical understanding of what are the skills that needed in the workplace. No, they ask for inspiration. They ask for, again, change of behavior, change of mindset, and so on. And so I would say that, the audience takes away, first of all, in order to change behavior, we have to understand the how to. So a toolkit, basically, with the necessary steps to actually implement these new skills or new technologies. And so, again, a practical a toolkit in order to do that. Second, actually, they live with a sense of urgency, which is also very important for behavioral change. Sense of urgency, it's fundamental, because if we don't feel that that is urgent and important to do, we will not give up our old behaviors, namely following our past routines, habits, and processes at work, right? But we really need to feel that sense of urgency. And so in my keynotes, I provide this very rapidly changing context, the external context, and therefore leaders and audiences, they feel this sense of urgency. And maybe last but not least, I think, the audiences take away, of course, a bit of inspiration and understanding that, again, digital transformations and skill set changes are within their reach. They're not as hard as they might think. They're not as expensive as they might think because they're basically depends on them. Depends on their acceptance of change and not on someone else's top-down decision to just roll out new technologies or just spend money on them. Why? Because as we've said at the beginning here, it's not just about having access to these technologies, but it's about how we make use of them. And so I think all of this is very important. And I believe most of my customers take away some of these points from my keynote speeches.